Hey folks, so this week we are starting a, a new essay and our final essay. This essay is going to be making an argument about a TV show. There's a whole discipline, a professional discipline in journalism and at university called TV studies that formally studies TV. So think of it as we're doing a TV studies argument based paper. My students over the years have really told me they want to write about TV and music. So this is why we did sort of music therapy, and now we're doing TV studies. So I hope you really get into this one as much as you got into the music therapy paper. Okay, so I'm gonna go through this in about 15 minutes. I love watching TV, so my heart's really in this. So we have a few things due this week. I'll go over that. We'll look at the readings, and I'm going to show you some easy, not easy ways to work, but really smart, creative ways to make arguments that maybe you haven't considered before. Okay, so first thing, major thing to do, 40 points. 40 points, folks, is your final edited and revised music therapy paper. Okay, so you're taking my feedback, which is on Canvas. There's an announcement about how to access that, and you're taking your colleagues' peer review feedback. So take all that rich feedback that you've gotten and your own feedback, right? And revise and edit your paper and resubmit your final music therapy paper by this Sunday. Okay, so you've got a week to work on this. So that's there, and right, same requirements, but make sure you also have a counter argument and that title that has the hook and keywords, and you've got your reference page, and you're using APA style. So check out the assignment again just to remember all the things that I'm asking you to learn. Okay? Okay. So then you have two short little discussions, and these discussions are brainstormers. They're helping you develop, think through new ideas about a TV show. Okay? So step one, folks, pick a TV show. Pick a TV show. If you don't watch TV, hopefully you have in the past, or you have access to YouTube where you can watch free episodes of a show. Okay. I watch several shows on YouTube for free. So step one, pick a show. Okay. So, I think about the shows I watch. Charmed, Modern Family, Family Guy, Bob's Burgers, Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Does that make sense? So just like, what have you been watching, right? So, and then you start thinking about, okay, what is an issue or problem I'm noticing? And I'll get to more about this later. We have some readings on TV. So you'll see HBO Rise of the Female Antihero and Law and Order Special Victims Unit. So if you want to see what writing about TV looks like, right? It looks like these articles, okay? One's a newspaper, right? So you might connect more with the Rise of the Female TV Antihero just because it's an editorial. It's really opinion based with evidence from a newspaper, right? And then we have a longer, more academic, more professional Law and Order Special Victims Unit by several researchers and university writers. Okay? So go through those. You'll see how people write about TV. You'll see sort of the problems or issues that they're looking at. Okay. And when I say a problem, right, this week is all about using the problem statements, which we'll look at in a moment. You need to find a problem with the TV show. So let's just get into that. And folks, a problem is not like, oh, Rachel doesn't love Ross. That's not a problem, right? That's not a problem. That's like, that's just drama. Does that make sense? So when I say problem, I mean, how does Friends portray friendship, right? There's articles about that. How do cop procedural crime shows, how do they portray police and policing and the criminal justice system? How do they portray women cops versus male? Does that make sense? Like, we're looking for a social problem. And when I say a social problem, think of like sociology, anthropology. You're drawing from all of these diverse disciplines like criminal justice, sociology, anthropology, religious studies. Um, does that make sense? So I'll give a lot of examples in a second. Okay, so here is a really smart process. Step one, pick a TV show. Okay. Step two, go to Google Scholar. I I say several times in your assignments, avoid the internet. It will just give you cheap sources, or you'll just sort of capture an argument that's already been made, and you do not want to do that. That is not arguable. You have to say something new with this paper. So, for example, let's say I want to write about TV, television, drugs, and the TV show Euphoria, which was really big a few years ago. Okay? So you're going to see, oh, there's actually a lot written on Euphoria, the Euphoria effect, transgressive Euphoria, HBO. Oh, there's like pages and pages. There's articles and articles. Okay? So this should tell you you might not want to pick Euphoria and talk about drugs and substance abuse because it's covered, it's done, it's known. So I'd be like, okay, I'm not writing about drugs on Euphoria. I might write about policing and the portrayal of cops on Euphoria, and there indeed are cops on Euphoria. Okay? So does that make sense? So I think step two is don't write about what's known and what's covered and what's heavily researched. That's just fact land. You want to go beyond fact, right? You want to say something new. So, sort of going back to our Bloom's taxonomy, right? Our pyramid of critical thinking, our pyramid of higher level thought, right? So, we start at remembering and understanding, right? We have an article this week about policing as seen on TV, as portrayed, the effects, the perceptions that that creates about crime, who commits, who's perceived as committing crime when groups are over portrayed versus other groups, right? So can you remember these ideas? Can you understand this idea called propaganda, right? Or how civil rights violations are casually shown on on so many TV shows. Okay, like can you understand that, right? And now you want to apply or analyze these ideas, right? You want to go up that pyramid of thinking, of higher thought. So I'm like, okay, Dr. C is talking about this thing called propaganda, whatever, or ancient aliens and bias, right? So I want to apply that, right, to a new situation, to a new show. Does that make sense? So you could apply this idea of propaganda to Euphoria, okay? People normally, like 90% of articles on Euphoria are about drug use. Glamorization, but also a critique of drug use. Surprise, that's what they all say. It's both. These shows are creating this perception that's criticizing drug use and glamorizing it at the same time. Okay? But I can't find any articles that talk about, well, what about propaganda on that show? Or how are the police portrayed in general? Okay? So that would be applying the concept of propaganda to Euphoria. So I can work that way. Okay? Rather than writing about drug use on Euphoria, which is widely covered and written about. I'm not going to say anything new about that topic, folks. Here's another way to work, right? Let's say, and folks, I'm not telling you to write about propaganda, so don't be like, oh, Dr. C says we have to. That's just sort of my example this week, and ancient aliens and some other things. You do you, right? So let's say you want to write about the environment and climate change and ecology on a TV show, right? You want to apply those concepts to your show. Okay, great, right? So I plugged all of my concepts into Google Scholar. I got this big list of things, right? And folks, you're not gonna let's say you want to write about Charmed or Star Trek, right? If you plug in that specific show, you're probably not going to get something on the environment and ecology. This is going to be on more general shows. So you're applying these ideas to a new show that hasn't been covered yet, which is your show. Okay. So let's say I want to talk about the environment and ecology and the portrayal of, right, those things on Bob's Burgers or Star Trek or whatever show you're watching. Does that make sense? That would be new, okay? So that's another way to work. Like what are your interests, right? I'm really interested in the environment. Let me apply that to a TV show that I've been watching and look at that show through that understanding or look at that show through that lens and, right, say something new about that show, right? By using these concepts of climate change and ecological citizenship and global environmental risk and fighting climate, right? All these concepts I'm getting from these research articles, climate change in the media, um, environmental awareness, visual ecology, right? Can I apply those to a TV show, right? So that's a great way to work. Um, Here's another example, right? Propaganda. That is a concept we're learning this week, right? Propaganda on shows like Law and Order or Cops, right? Or any police procedural. Um, so you're like, okay, so I plug in propaganda and you get 25 articles, 30, 40 articles about this, right? So I'm like, okay, these all talk about certain shows. Let me apply this to, another show or a new show, okay? And, let me just explain what propaganda is. Where's a good little definition? Um, Propaganda is content that encourages audiences. Sorry, folks. Toby! Propaganda is like TV content that encourages audiences to see policing and police violence as fair, noble, and necessary. Right? So let that sink in. Right? So I think of it, in my own words, right? And this is, folks, you need to paraphrase in your papers and put this stuff in your own language. If you're using long, complicated sentences like this isn't your own language, right? So I'm going to paraphrase this. You look away from the screen. What is propaganda in my own words? It's like positive bias in favor of the police and policing and police work so that we see police as heroes. That's my language, okay? But, I got the main idea from this source, so I need to also cite this source, right? So I'd be like, okay, according to um, Hartrick and Gonzalez 2022. Great. Okay, so I want to apply this idea of propaganda to a new show, okay? One that hasn't been written about, right? A lot of older shows have been written about. Find a new show, 2023, 2024, or a show about to come out, right? Usually you can sort of read what the shows are about. So let's say, where's my... I'm looking around for... Okay, here we go. So I'm looking for new police dramas, new police procedurals, right? 2023, 2024, 2025. And I get this huge list. Folks, these just came out or are coming out. And I assure you, no one's written about the propaganda on these shows yet because they just came out. So that's a really great way to work, is to apply a concept to something new, right? Is propaganda still happening or have we fixed it, right? This concept has been around for a while, right? TV producers, watchers, makers, they know about this. They know it's a problem. So your question is, well, is it still happening on new shows like Found or Will Trent or Blue Lights or Alert or The Killer or Criminal Record? Shows that just came out. Um, I was watching episodes of Found. This came out last year. And this one's really interesting. Found sort of, right, I'm applying this idea of propaganda, and it's sort of, it's complicated, right? So I think my argument would be it's not fully propaganda because they're not really promoting police and policing. It's sort of who the police left behind. And Found goes after sort of looking for victims who our criminal justice system has ignored or forgotten. Does that make sense? So it's not really propaganda because it's saying, like when most criminal police procedurals show the police getting their guy, that doesn't happen, right? Less than 20% of crimes are solved by the police. That's just a fact, right? So this show is really accurate about that. I gotta continue on for video 2, so I'm gonna pause this. Okay, give me one sec.